You speak to if this is unplowed and unsettled legal ground then around a federal vaccine mandate?
I do think it's somewhat unsettled at this point.
Unsettled and unplowed, a pretty good way to describe the situation Idaho's leaders find themselves in today as they decide if they should try and take action on President Biden's executive order on vaccine mandates. The Committee on Federalism, which was created just 2 years ago and meets only on an interim basis, called for a last-minute meeting to talk over the executive order, which requires companies with more than 100 employees, federal employees, and contractors of the federal government to get vaccinated or be tested for COVID weekly. Now, just last week, Governor Brad Little, along with other state leaders, sent a letter to President Biden threatening legal action should he not rescind his executive order. Well, this afternoon, Idaho Chief Deputy Attorney General Brian Kane explained how and what Idaho could fight.
Within this context, right, if the federal government is regulating its federal employees, we're going to have a very hard time being successful in getting into court. When we step down to the federal government regulating contractors with contracts with its federal employees, and when I read the executive order, it will actually have language within the contracts addressing this, right? So now you've got employers who are consenting to these terms within the federal contracts. Again, it becomes very difficult for the state to insert itself into that equation. Now, when the federal executive overextends through its rulemaking authority, we then have the ability to challenge that. But if our challenge is unsuccessful, then we run the risk of likely federal preemption, meaning the state can pass what it wants to, but at the end of the day, the federal regulation will be considered the law of the land, and what the state has done in that space will be preempted.
As of today, the Biden administration has not enacted the rules requiring companies with, again, more than 100 employees to require the vaccine. Now, the committee did take some public testimony today. The majority of people, which were for bringing lawmakers back to enact legislation against vaccine mandates. Now, that meeting just wrapped up about an hour ago, and the committee decided they're going to hold another meeting. They're going to meet again next Tuesday to continue their discussion. So no decision yet on if the committee will recommend calling the legislature back. But if they do, Speaker of the House, Republican Scott Bedke, he would also have to agree to this as well, because the House never technically adjourned for the year, sine die. So it's at Speaker Bedke's discretion at this point. As for the Senate, they formally adjourned for the year, and it takes two to tango. So if we got to the point where the Senate was needed to be called back to enact legislation, it would honestly put us in a weird legal position. And it's one of those we'll find out what happens if we get to that point.